It doesn't work.
Good morning and welcome to this week's Jump discussion. This week, as I've been sort of emailing out to everybody and on LinkedIn, this week we're going to see how we can find more candidates that are hiding in plain sight. And this we've got a special guest. We have Gabby Preston Pfeiffer, who is, I always thought I was reasonably good at Boolean logic until I sat in with a session with Gabby and realized that I was remedial at best at Boolean logic, and that there's so much more to learn, and to use it properly we can find so many more candidates. Gabby spent 7.5 years at JP Morgan, then 10 years as an operations director at Oscar Harrington's, which is a recruitment agency in the automotive business, before becoming a mother. And in her own words, disputing life and introduction and training for too many me's, aka parenting, she calls it. And then 3 years ago, with her husband, created Tooled Up Raccoons. So we're going to find out what a raccoon it really is and how she can help us. So Gabby, welcome to Jump. Welcome to our session. Okay. I'm going to throw it over to you with regards to sourcing more candidates and how you can help us sourcing more candidates. Guys and girls on the show, if you want to ask any questions, feel free to put them into the chat box and we'll be happy to answer and pass them on to Gabby as she gets going. Gabby, I know this is going to be a fast and furious session, as it always is with yourself. So quick introduction for yourself and then let's get kicked off.
Amazing. Well, thank you everyone for having me here today. I think you guys are incredibly brave to invite me into your webinar and your session, because I think, as Howard has very politely described, I am a bit of a Boolean addict, and I hopefully through this journey, I'm going to inspire you guys to actually step into the world a lot more of why Boolean is the answer, why you need to do this for a lot more of your candidate sourcing. So I know Howard's giving you a bit of a backdrop on me. I am a bit of an unusual breed because I did elect and choose to go into the world of recruitment. It was very much an active decision. My career in banking was it wasn't in recruitment at all. Like, I didn't do any of the hiring as such. I did a lot of interviewing. But during my time in banking, I worked from back office, middle office to front office sales. But one of the things that really resonated with me was the importance of operational excellence when we do things. So what you will know and probably hear me say a lot of is I hate wasting time. And I hate wasting money, which I'm sure a lot of you can resonate with, especially when you're a smaller business, right? You don't have the luxury of having other people pick up dead weight from you. You need to work as efficiently as possible. And it was that love of operational excellence that when I came into the recruitment space, I was suddenly like, do you know what? We can be doing stuff better. We can break the mold and push the boundaries that we've got so used to sitting within. And that's how the company Tooled Up Raccoons was actually formed. So Tooled Up Raccoons is actually a piece of technology that me and my husband designed from scratch and continue to invest in to evolve to help recruiters leverage the power of Boolean across any platform. So in other words, getting you to hunt more accurately and faster than you ever have been able to do. So that's what our mission is. So really every targeted search starts and begins with us. So I want to kind of float this idea past you, okay? I'm just going to shrink my heads on the right because you guys, you're in my way of my slides. I'm sorry. So how many of you have ever thought this? I've paid to get access to the best data set, and the platform we use is designed to help me. I'm pretty sure a lot of you are probably sitting on this call being like, well, yeah, like I paid to access a job board, a social media platform, a CRM, whatever it may be. And there is this underlying assumption that those technology companies are there to help you. Unfortunately, team, they're not. This is your data. These platforms are trapping your data within there. And the reason it's becoming trapped is very simple. If we just take a pause and look at how many candidates or people, let's call them people, sit within these platforms. Reed has 12 million. CV Library, 18.8 million. Total jobs is 24 million. LinkedIn is 940 million. Sprinkle the magic on top of whatever the hell is sitting in your CRM. There is so much data out there, so much data for them to categorize and fit into these little filters that you so heavily rely on. You have to ask yourself the question, if you struggle to categorize your own CRM with the data, what on earth do you think these platforms are doing? They are going to struggle as much as you are. So why are the errors occurring? Okay, we are going to do some live searching today, so bear with me. It's going to be a bit of an entertaining journey as long as the internet holds and the platforms do as they're meant to. But I want to help you understand why these errors are occurring in your searches and why you're potentially challenged in finding the candidates you want through these platforms. So the first one, and I've alluded to it already, is the errors in filters. Okay, and I'm going to show you what I mean. I'm using LinkedIn because I paid access to LinkedIn, right? I could pay for many other platforms, but this is a great starting point for you guys to understand what's going on. A moment ago, I obviously said to you that these are the numbers, like 940 million people are on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn are trying to categorize all these people. So if you came into LinkedIn today and was like, let's see, I am going to search for, let's have a look actually, let's pick this. I reckon today's search we will do, okay, if I go there, we're going to do deep learning. I think that's going to be a wicked one, right? Let's do a deep learning specialist. So down here on this drop down, you're seeing 3 different categories. So what LinkedIn is telling me is that there's only those 3 job titles for a deep learning specialist. So specialist, engineer, and researcher. Apparently those are the only job titles available for that role. So I'm going to just drop those in, right? But the fact they haven't even grouped these job titles tells me that they actually haven't categorized this completely. Because what should happen is there should be deep learning and then those normal little boxes. So if I did marketing manager, for example, just so you can see what I mean, do you normally see this? And that means there's subtitles and categories underneath it. We'll get there on where there's issues in that in a minute. But with this deep learning one, if I did a location of, let's say, Germany, it doesn't really matter where it is, but we're going to pick an example to narrow it down. Your filters, I've got 275 results. So a lot of you are probably sitting there going, well, there's nothing wrong with that filter then. I've got 275 results at the click of a button. But I want you guys to watch this. I've built a Boolean string, and you're going to hear me say the word Boolean a lot, that says deep learning or DL, right? DL isn't an option, but DL is one of the acronyms they use. And I've put not director, vice president, etc. Okay, so I want to see what happens to my search. So this is starting to look at smart searches when the internet wakes up. 450 results. So what I did with that search is I excluded anyone who was already in those job titles that they'd given me in my filters to identify what the delta was. So what the difference was between their filters and how many potential candidates are out there. Got 450 people. That's monstrous. That's absolutely ridiculous and obnoxious that you would miss that many people because LinkedIn can't categorize their data. You are going to have exactly the same problem with every job board you use, every single job board, because again, they're going to struggle to capture that data and consolidate it down. Does that make sense? Any questions so far? I want to make sure you guys are following this. It's making sense.
If you looked at that then, Gabby, where's the errors? You know, you're talking about, you know, there's deep learning there. You've got a very small number on the original search. You put a Boolean search string, remove the filters. Why is that? Why is then the solution Boolean? Why is that different?
Because it's allowing me to capture the nuances. Okay, so if I said to you, anyone who has the job title deep learning director, for example, that won't be captured by that filter because according to LinkedIn, no one ever has that job title. So according to LinkedIn, that person's profile is sitting in there, but I can't get access to it because they haven't categorized it. And that is why Boolean comes into play, because it's capturing those people who do not neatly fit into the filters that these guys have been allowed to play with. Because you have to remember, and I talk about this a lot, about this power of free text format, right? If we go back to the original days when all these kind of online portals started to emerge, what we ended up happening was this ability to go in, I'm going to go and update my job title, and you'd have a drop down. You probably all remember it, right? You go, right, what's your job title? Sales director, CEO, CFO, blah, 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 blah. And you take yourself and try and squeeze yourself into that drop down. That got blown up years ago. We don't see those drop downs anymore. What we see is a free text format where I can go in and I can write my name. I can write whatever job title in the entire universe I want to have. And as soon as you blow that up and you think of a whole world being able to write whatever they want for job titles, for descriptions on their roles, how on earth is a filter ever going to capture that? It's not. Where Boolean will allow you to go, right, I know these are the job titles for these particular fields, and you'll be able to capture them and put them in. Does that help?
It does, yeah. So obviously you're going to go into live searching and stuff like that. Talk to me more about then the live searching that we can do. That, you know, that's one example. Give us examples of this that sort of really will, you know, in your words, blow our minds.
Okay, so let me see if I can pull you up this one. So this will blow your mind. Okay. Yeah, I have that one. I'm just making sure it's there because it is a monstrous string. So marketing manager, right? This is huge number difference. So marketing manager currently, and I'm going to use United Kingdom, right? Let's go for a bigger data set. Really simple. So what I've done is I've picked the job title marketing manager, and in here are 40 title variations. So again, in the world of how recruiters have been programmed, you're sitting there going, that's wicked. It's got 40 titles. It's got to have covered everything. What I did, being the very cool person that I am, is I actually took all of those 40 job titles and I put them into a Boolean string, which you would all rightly assume should bring up exactly the same results. So I've got 58,000 results there. And this is how cool I am, the fact I even have a Boolean string that's done this. Here's all the job titles. And I'm not going to suggest you do this because it's brutal, but that's 40 job titles that they think they've captured. So I've gone from 58,000 to, drum roll please, 80,000. They are identical sets of data, identical job titles. The only difference is I put it in a Boolean string and they've got it in a filter, which tells me the delta between those two is driven by the fact that LinkedIn hasn't been able to categorize those people. Even though they've got the job titles they think they have, they haven't associated it with that filter. But you know what? It gets one step smarter than that. What I can do is you can do a really simple Boolean string, marketing and manager. Right, watch this. So that string, if you don't know Boolean, what that will do is that will look for any job title that contains the word marketing and manager. The reason I've got them separated like that is it allows that flexibility for someone to have written another word in between. So marketing specialist manager, for example. Okay, so if I now copy that and run it, I've got 100,000 results in the UK for people that have the words marketing manager in their profile. So I went from 58,000 to 100,000. And what a lot of you will feel right now, and I can feel you all doing it, is I don't want 100,000 candidates. Because I mean, who wants to go through that many, right? Who wants to go through 58,000 in the first start, right? Nobody wants to go through that. But the point you have to remember here is you as a recruiter should always start with the true talent pool. Who is your true talent pool? And what I can tell you is if every single one of you on this call went and used that filter for marketing manager, for example, and I just took it one step further and got smarter and went, here's the talent pool, now I'm going to refine it down. I'm going to find people you're not, but you're going to be talking to the same people that everyone else is talking to because your search isn't going deep enough and far enough to pull back the true talent pool that you should be looking with, right? This is your initial starting point, and then you hunker down into it to find exact people, but you need to step out the filters, and that's why they're broken. Any questions before I move on? Howard,
I've got two questions to come. Obviously, cool. people are going to fear you created a huge Boolean string there. So exactly. I want you to talk on to how you do that, and I'm going to do that later. But I've got a question from Holly Jakes here, which is, should you always enter the Boolean into the job title rather than keywords?
So I promise, so hold that question. I'm going to walk you through that. I'm going to walk you through the exact fields you need to go to, okay?
I'm holding it.
Hold it there. Do not let me forget it. And I promise I'll come back. So we've identified filters are an issue. Let's see if I can get this thing to work. The other challenge you have, and I want you guys, the reason I'm covering this with you and getting you guys thinking about it is because there's a lot of assumptions about what technology we've done. So we've already proved that the filters created by these massive corporates that you pay a lot of money to are basically holding your candidate and your data hostage, because those filters are not accommodating your searches and capturing everyone because they can't fit it. The next problem is, but the platform does it for me. There is a lot of technology being vomited onto the market, and I'm going to be quite brutal on these calls. I'm not going to name companies because I don't think that's appropriate, but there are a lot of technology out there and going, do you know what, recruiter? Don't panic. I'm going to build your search for you, right? So what it does is tell you to create, it'll go, right, you put in engineer, and it's going to create this magical Boolean string, supposedly, and chuck you out the results. The problem with that is when you can't see the Boolean string, you are out of control of your search. I can't tell you, and I'll cover it later, I'll show you an example of dumb Boolean created by a company who are like, I'm going to help you build a Boolean search, but they're non-Boolean experts. So my view is, as soon as a platform says, but I'll do it for you, I will create this Boolean for you, please be careful. Do not get in bed with these people. You need to understand the Boolean behind it so you can be in control of your search. The other thing I want to talk about while we're on this journey of how to find more candidates, I want you to think about this process. There are platforms out there that automatically rank candidates based on your search. Okay, there's a couple that spring to mind immediately. You may or may not have seen or heard of them. If you want to know afterwards, message me and we'll discuss it offline. But what happens is you build a search. You'll build a filter-based search or Boolean if you're lucky, if they help you create that. And what they do is they automatically rank the candidates based on how many words they have on their profile. This is one of the most stupidest search techniques I have ever seen in my entire life. The level of words or buzzwords included on a profile does not denote their ability to do the job. If you're all using the same ranking system to find a candidate, let's say we all pay for this particular platform, okay? And we all go after that software engineer or marketing manager, or whoever it may be, and the platform auto ranks based on the same logic for all of you. Where's your competitive advantage? You're all going to be hitting the same candidates at the same time, and you won't be able to take your search any deeper because the platforms are limiting you. So be careful of these sexy features that are supposedly making your life quicker and better. They're actually capping you to be stuck at a certain level of hunting and be stuck on parallel with your competition. You need to dig deeper and faster and more accurately. The other challenge when you're starting to look at pre-built Boolean in terms of my platform does it for you and filters is those filters are never ever getting any smarter. So if you have candidates that are calling themselves things that don't fit within the realm of that filter, or they have a typo, or they use an acronym that's new to the industry, or a new title that's new to the industry, your filters are what they are, which means those candidates, again, are being lost in your data. And I know it's very negative thinking, yada, 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 but these are real life challenges that a lot of you may not be considering, but you need to be thinking like this because your data is being trapped. And I see it every single day of the week when I talk to clients. They're like, I know the candidate's in there, but I can't find it. And it's like, what are you doing? What action are you doing to get back in control of that search and execute? Now, this is the key to this. You're listening to me going, yeah, okay, Gabs, I hear what you're saying, but what's the impact? Time, talent, money, and clients. If you're wasting time relying on filters and you're starting the same filter search over and over and over again in different platforms, you're wasting time. You're losing talent because your searches are stuck up here, where mine are going underneath and pulling out who I want. So you are losing talent. I can promise you that. Money, this flips both ways, right? You're wasting money on people within your team who are just literally mindlessly scrolling and kind of chasing the information, but you're also losing money because you're going to be handing your competitors talent. Because if they can find them first, you've lost the role and you're out. You will lose clients. Clients aren't willing to sit there. I don't care how many clients say, I love you, you're my best friend. Quite frankly, if the person next door can get them better talent quicker, why would they play with you versus someone else? So there is a massive consequence on your business if you don't address how you actually leverage the data that you're seeing in front of you. So there's my doom and gloom. Are there any questions before I actually move on and we actually walk into how do we get 100% accuracy on our searches for candidates? Are there any questions out there? Are we cool to move?
Just move on, Gabby. As questions come in, we'll fire the questions at you.
Perfect. So as you kind of guessed, the answer to get 100% accuracy out of your data is this little puppy. It's Boolean. It's an 18th century technique, and many of you will have either heard of it and gone, oh, that's interesting, or you've heard of it and you want to go and jump and hide under the desk and go, it's a mathematical thing, please don't do it. I'm here today to tell you that Boolean is one of the most accessible techniques for hunting. It is not, it's not complicated. It is not the hardest thing you're ever going to do. But I understand why you felt like that, because a lot of trainers are like, oh, it's like 60,000 brackets and it's mathematical. All it is a mechanism for you to capture those candidate uniquenesses and move those through different platforms. But the most interesting part and the most important part about Boolean is it is transferable across any platform. It is the one common language that sits between a CRM, between a job board, between a social media platform. It is there. The only question, and we'll cover this later, is around whether the platform allows you to use it. But that is why Boolean is so powerful. And I truly believe we have moved to a generation now where Boolean used to be a nice to have. But with how much data sits online, this is the only way to hunt effectively through that. So you cannot ignore this as a technique. So we've obviously, I just want to help you visualize this. So we have kind of 3 layers of this iceberg, right? Icebergs come into everything. It's brilliant. So we have candidate searching that sits at filter level. So you're right at the top. You've then got people who are starting to use Boolean, which is really, the using Boolean is when you're just taking hiring manager buzzword bingo and vomiting it into a Boolean string. And then we've got people who are really leveraging Boolean across different platforms, who are really hunkering into that data talent set. And I want to see you guys down at the bottom of that iceberg, playing with the people who aren't being found by others, because I promise you there are absolute gems underneath there. So actually, let's do a search. Like I said, I've got LinkedIn Recruiter, and I'm happy to kind of discuss other platforms you have access to. I always joke on these sessions that I'd be bankrupt if I bought every piece of technology that all of you possess. But hopefully the things I'm showing you and the things I'm getting you to think about, you can translate that into these platforms. So the first one I want to talk to you about is when you buy access to a data set, so whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's a job board, whether it's a CRM, I want you to be asking the questions, which fields can I use Boolean in? Big, massive question, right? We've already established filters are broken. We've already established companies can't keep up with them. And quite frankly, they don't care because they're not executing searches. They're just giving you data. That's their job. So they're not really thinking about how they can make it smarter. But if you have something like LinkedIn, for example, I'm sitting on Recruit. I know in LinkedIn, I can put Boolean in job titles. I can put it in companies, like it says it here, or Boolean, and I can put it in the keyword section. So I've got 3 sections I can put it in. But the next question you guys need to be asking is, what are my limits? Okay. So with every platform you purchase, some will have unlimited Boolean lengths and others will have caps. So for example, LinkedIn Recruiter has 2,000 characters on the job title, 4,000 characters on the company field, and 4,000 characters on the keyword field. Okay. If you start dropping down, Recruiter Lite has the same. Sales Navigator has 15 operators. So we started talking about different things now. We're starting going to the operators. So your and, ors, or nots on Boolean. It's 15 on the company, 15 on the keyword. And at the minute, and I suspect there's a bug in Sales Nav by the fact I can get away with this, I can get 50 operators in the job title. According to their documentation, it's only 15, but they keep changing and don't tell anyone, quite normal with platforms. But the reason you need to ask these questions, so identify the fields and identify your limits. Because when you know your limits, you can then work out how far and how big you can build your strings, okay? So I know when I say the words 2,000 characters on a job title, people go, well, that's not very big, right? But if I build a string now, I can actually build a string. Do you want me to build a string with one of you? Just one of you want to raise a hand and pick a job and we'll actually just build one together?
Why don't you build a string? It'd be easy to build a string on just a accounts support person.
You want a manager or just account support?
Just bog standard account support, low level account support.
Target industry?
Manufacturing.
Everyone says manufacturing at the minute. It's a bit of a theme. Core function of the role is account support. So I'll actually just do that. Any previous experience in it?
Sales ledger.
Anything else? You can just stop at one.
Payroll.
You happy?
Do that, yep.
Okay. So when you start creating these strings, if you started from scratch and just used buzzwords, you'd probably only come up with 2 or 3, okay? But you have to remember, again, going back to this idea earlier that we spoke about where drop-downs are broken and the alternative job titles are real and the alternative keywords are real. You need to think outside the box. So the only reason I wanted this one was because actually I want to have a look at this. I'm going to remove all this stuff. I actually just want the job titles for this. So in here, I've got account support, account administrator, account assistant, accounts clerk, blah, 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 right? You can start deleting stuff or doing whatever you want with this. I don't really care what you do. But already I'm sitting at 502 characters. The point of this is purely to demonstrate how quickly, if you start pulling up nuances on job titles, those character limits can be used, okay? So that's why it's important that you understand where those limits sit and how far you can actually push them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, fabulous. That makes me happy. So what you could do is, obviously, because I've built a huge one, I could just put that in there. It doesn't really matter. I can run that through. So again, by understanding the fields you can put it in, teaches you how you can leverage each section. And just so you know, I know some of you are going to be looking at the screen going, well, what is SAQT? I've actually got my LinkedIn recruiter profile set up with ED&i hunting. So basically, I can't see any pictures or anyone's names. Okay, it's a particular feature I have set up. If you want to do the same thing, go into a project, hit project settings and hide candidate photos and names. It is great, by the way, from a business development perspective, when you're talking to clients, to say this is how I hunt. Okay, I hunt in blind mode and I hunt using Boolean because I'm more inclusive in my hunting. Side note, but it's worth considering and thinking about, okay? So once you know your fields and your limitations, then you can start playing around, okay? So if you go into CV Library, and annoyingly, I don't have access to it, CV Library has one line across the top. For any of you who've got it, right? It's one line and it goes, you can put Boolean in there, right? The challenge when you're using platforms that only have one line to put Boolean in is that means you're going to include job titles, keywords, and companies all in one field, okay? When a Boolean string is run at that kind of top level, it's going to look anywhere on that profile, absolutely anywhere. So it might not be their current job title. It might not be the words they've used as a keyword for this role. So for example, payroll, okay? That word may have been used in their profile 4 jobs ago, okay? So you need to be thinking with these data sets is, does it do Boolean? What fields? What's character limits? And can I break those searches down to really hunker in? So you saw me here on job titles. I can flick that to current or past. So I know any of these people who come up on my profile specifically have those titles right now as we're sitting here talking. If I then go down to companies and I put companies in, again, I can flick it to current or current and past. So I can see, for example, a lot of you might not use company Boolean strings, but I absolutely love the things, because if I'm looking for someone who's in a particular role who works at the competitor for the company I'm hiring for, that's a really nice, easy step 1 of a hunt, right? I haven't had to do anything particularly complicated. I've built competitor strings, and here's one I built earlier, Blue Peter moment, as it were. This is one we built, okay? Over time, we've created this. We support A Cubed, which is part of Airbus in our recruitment business, and these are all their competitors. So when I run a search for a particular role for this company, all I will do is nice and simply come into here, hit companies and hit current. And then what I will do is put a job title in, and I'll pull back people who've got jobs. So I've got 580,000 people worldwide that have that job or work for those companies. If I then, let's pull this string, I don't know if it's going to work, we'll see. I love a random search. I can put job title current. I can put companies current. I've got 9 people that fit that job title that work at my competitors. They're good 9s, right? Because if you think about it from your hiring process perspective, those are people who are directly at my competitors doing that exact job, I can pick them up and move them because my client would more than likely want to see them. Okay, so it's about how you can manipulate the data. Some of you might be saying, well, Gabs, why would I use Boolean for a company string? Just while we're talking about companies. The interesting thing you have to remember is when you use drop downs for companies. So if we use an example like JP Morgan, that's JP Morgan, right? These are all the variations of JP Morgan, JP Morgan Chase Bank Association, Chase Bank NA, Service India, Chase Vastoro Canada, Chase Co, Private Bank. So you'd actually have to capture each and every one of those. Again, we already know filters are broken and people aren't being categorized. But if I wrote a Boolean string like that, I automatically capture any of these that contain the words JP Morgan. So if they add a new subsidiary, I'm going to pick it up. The other thing you have to be careful of when it comes to companies is not including their legal status. So limited, LTD, or limited. How did someone write that when their data was being captured? When you use a Boolean string, we can literally capture the core element of the name of the company, ignore the legal status, and then include them in our search, okay? So that's why I would use company Boolean rather than the Boolean breakdown. And I actually had one with a particular client where they built the hugest company string, well, company filter, and I translated it and they were missing 4,000 candidates because they'd used the filter version rather than the Boolean version. And the other thing to know is if you are accessing multiple platforms, if I build a filter of, let's say, 50 companies in this particular platform, how quickly can I go and move that to the next platform I'm hunting on? You can't.
So what you're saying there, Gabby, if you go back to your search, the
Yep.
way you search, your search there is very simple. You put in your keywords and then your platform will create the Boolean search,
Yep.
irrespective. And then what you can do is you can then manipulate that search depending on what you want.
Exactly. And that's the key, because a lot of people, when you think about Boolean, are like, well, it's just one string and you stop. And this is part of the problem with a lot of the data sets that you guys pay for, is the way they allow you to extract data is just one dimensional. It's like, here's a line, dump it in. So it's built in that mindset where that you have a string and you'd literally just take, for example, let's see if I've got a bigger one that I can steal. I think that one's quite a big one, right? So opera, right? It's a particular role we had on, it's fine. But people would think, oh, well, you just pick it up and drag it and drop it into your platform. What you should actually be doing is taking elements of it and seeing what happens to your search. Again, we spoke about earlier about the challenges of automatic ranking based on how many buzzwords someone's included on their profile. If you think about it this way, some profiles are very light and some are very heavy, which means you have to build a string that contains words that they may use and then have the confidence to take certain elements of it and put it into different sections of your search. And I know one of the questions earlier was like, well, do I run the search just job titles, or do I use just keywords? And the answer is never just do one. So for me, when I think logically about my searches, I will have a Boolean string in my job title and I'll hit it to current, companies, current, and keywords. I will do one search like that. And then what I'll do, depending on my results, is I'll actually remove the keywords and just have the job titles and the companies. If I'm really struggling to find candidates, what I'll then do is actually remove the job titles and have a company string and a keyword string. Okay. And the reason I sometimes go for that extreme of removing job titles in entirety is, as we mentioned earlier, a lot of companies are trying to limit your ability to find people, right? They don't want you stealing their talent. Like, that's the reality, right? Everybody loves a recruiter when you're trying to find them a job, but they don't want you to steal their talent. So they're coming up with unique and wonderful job titles to hide these people. I mean, even simple things like director. I was helping someone with a financial role the other day, and directors out in Asia, for some reason, there was a whole pool of people that just written DIR.
So what you're saying is then create a search.
Yep.
That will be more inclusive and then start to narrow that search down to get to the people. Once you've got the right search, then I would assume that you copy, save the search, and then use that for the next time you're using that job or looking for that job.
Every single day of the week. Every day of the week. Build your ultimate search. Like, have a look at how these people are describing themselves. So that DIR example that we had, let me just dump that in there so we've got some people to work with. But when you see nuances like that, you should be capturing that information. right? So the fact I found DIR as a title rather than director, I only found that because I had the confidence to take out the job titles, have companies and keywords, and see what people had called themselves. But I didn't just go, oh, they're calling themselves DIR. What I do is go, right, how do I get that into my Boolean string? You update your Boolean string. Like, for example, on this particular platform, let's translate this in, because we actually want this platform in English, translate to English, because I don't speak French, weirdly enough. So I've just translated this into English so I can understand what this is. But what I could say is ITS fields acquired, right? Let's pretend that was the word that candidate had used. I'm like, if I'd included that, I might have found them. Highlight it and grab it and add it to your string. Save auto, save keywords. So capture the data you're seeing to make it more of a candidate-centric hunt. And if I show you this, right? When we talk about candidate-centric hunting, and this is one of the things that will limit you. So filters won't allow you to capture it at this level. But this is what you need to be thinking about is how do you adjust your searches to find people that don't fit within the buzzwords, okay? Because the candidates you're looking for aren't hiring managers. They won't just vomit the words you expect. They will think outside the box. And these are just some of the concepts we teach. So like the power of past, present, and plural. So if we take an example of that, the word maintain, you want someone who's maintained a system. But depending on where they are in their job, whether they've done it today, last week, last month, last year, or they want to do it in the future, will change the tense they use on their profile. So you can have maintain, maintains, maintaining, like the variations continue. This doesn't, because the guy didn't, or guy or girl or person didn't use the word maintaining like you expected, does not mean they're not any good at their job. What you need to do is think about those nuances. Think about kind of how you'd use hyphens. The word coordinated or coordinate, brilliant. You can have it with a space, without a space, with hyphens. All of them impacting. So let's run a few. So here's some actual examples I've run, and I've pulled the data out just so you can see the numbers, because otherwise we'll spend half an hour running searches. But there's typos. Okay, a lot of you will sit in this call going, I don't care. If people can't write their profiles correctly, I don't want to deal with them. And I had that particular presentation. I always sit there and say to people, I'm dyslexic. Okay, very proud dyslexic person. I write typos, not with intent, but by mistake. People fat finger things on keyboards. You lot spend your life on LinkedIn creating the ultimate persona or profile. It's expected to be accurate. The candidates you're hunting are not necessarily doing that. They might just come onto the platform and go, they don't know I'm here, fill out my information and bugger off, because their life, it lives outside. So there are risks of typos. If I take these examples, 2 examples, engineer. If I type the word engineer in LinkedIn, I get 790,000 results. If I type engineer missing an E, I get 956 more people. Easy, right? I actually know candidates who specifically changed how they spell their title so you guys can't find them, right? Because they're like, I'm bored of being abused. But you have to take that into consideration. If you see a candidate that has a typo, highlight it and add it to your Boolean string, because there are others out there who might be doing it. The same with accountant, okay? Accidentally miss a C, I've got 198 more people, okay? But that's 198 that your competitors wouldn't have found because they're not thinking about it. But it doesn't mean they're no good at their job. Looking at the past, present, and plural examples, right? Reconcile, 27,000 people. But if I start putting in the past, present, and plural on these, I've got between 270,000 and 280,000. That's humongous numbers difference that you would have missed because you stopped at baseline 1, okay? The reason this has 270 to 280 is this. So if you have platforms like LinkedIn, I don't know any other platform that does this, so this is quite exciting new feature that LinkedIn has. In the keyword section on a LinkedIn search, it will look anywhere on someone's profile, okay? Within this key skills section, if I just show you where that is in case you guys aren't familiar with it. So this section here, this is a wicked example, actually. I like this. What you'll notice if I go down to deep learning, look at those words, found on resume. So do you know when you have those profiles that are incredibly light and don't have a lot of buzzwords on them? On LinkedIn right now, if I search without quotation marks on single words, I can find words that they've included in their CV that they submitted to any job on the internet. So that particular role, they submitted a CV on the 9th of June 2023, and that CV contained those words. Okay, so that's why in my presentation it says between 270 and 280, because it depends whether you include or exclude quotation marks. So the exclusion of quotation marks in the keyword section allows you to look through resumes submitted, and that's where it'll appear under key skills. But again, this is about knowing the platforms you're hunting on and asking smart questions about, okay, platform A that I'm about to buy, what are the filters? What are the limitations in terms of character limits, operator limits? Are there any nuances in terms of quotations or no quotations? Because all of this impacts how far into the data you can get. And I think you guys would be mind blown by how many companies out there you pay a lot of money to access don't actually know the answers to these questions. So be careful.
Now,
I feel like you've got a question.
Because we're running out of time, Gab, we've got 5 minutes left. Obviously, we understand where you're going. So if we look at this sort of thing and start thinking about all the job boards, etc. So does this work on most of the job boards? Does it work on if I was searching Outlook, if I was searching Share Drive, or if I was searching OneDrive? Does it do it on all of these things, or is it because the AI or it's smart versus dumb? How does this actually work across all platforms?
So it works across all platforms. Boolean is one of those beautiful languages that can transcend anywhere, right? And that's why we've created what we've created that lives outside these platforms, so you can store them, build them, all this kind of great stuff. The only thing that alters between the different platforms is the character limits and the fields you're allowed to hunt on. And the answers to those questions should actually dictate to a large extent whether you invest in those platforms or not. Because if they don't allow you to effectively hunt through that data, there's no point paying a lot of money for the data, because you'll never be able to get it out.
So the question is then, where can't this solution go then?
Shit tech. So technology companies that have been designed by people who have never hunted in their entire life and go, here's a beautiful database. And if they don't know what Boolean is, and they don't know how you can hunt through their platform on it, do not touch it. Because honestly, if you can't Boolean, your data is trapped forever. So those are the platforms you can't go near. And platforms that go, I build Boolean for you when you just input a job title, run a mile. Because if you can't control your search, and we've already proven the candidate-centric element of it, if you can't control your search in that platform, don't touch the tech. Run away.
So what we're saying then is that you don't have to be a Boolean expert.
Nope.
Your Boolean system will create the Boolean for you. But knowledge versus action is really important, because the knowledge of what you're searching for and the actions you take to search for it become really important.
Absolutely. Because I think that's where a lot of companies fall short, is because they don't understand these platforms and they don't understand how to hunt. When a hunt doesn't bring them results they want, what they do is they go, oh, the tech stack's broken, or my candidate doesn't exist in here. When you have the power of knowledge, and we talk about it a lot, like we dribble tidbits all over the internet, like on LinkedIn, I literally am like, here's the hottest tip, go try it. But as soon as you understand that, you can go into your database and go, actually, I confidently know how to push and pull the data to get what I want out of it. So you can sit there, and I've done searches where I'm like, the unicorn you're searching for really doesn't exist. And I can sit there with that level of conviction, because I know I have run the ultimate hunt on the platform, doing the ultimate kind of that combination section. I have that conviction, but a lot of people don't.
So the big question is CRMs.
Yeah.
There are lots and lots of different versions of CRMs out there. Are there CRM platforms that embrace this, or are there CRM platforms that absolutely would curtail you from doing this? Because most of our data that we've paid for, we're storing it on our CRM, but extracting it is unbelievable. Yeah, poor.
So how do I say this nicely? Every CRM supposedly lets you search using Boolean, or they will auto-generate, right? There's this new wave of, I'll create your search for you and control your data. But they all come at different levels of access. So as I mentioned earlier, there are some CRMs where you literally have one line to input your Boolean, which is like the dumbest thing in the world, because if you're looking for people who have a certain job title today, how does one line help me? It doesn't help me trunk that data down into current job title or current company or past company. Like, they're not allowing you to go that far into the data and pull it out. So again, as you're having these conversations, whether it's a CRM, whether it's an ATS, whether it's a job board, whether it's a social media platform, don't just sit there. And I mean, like, obviously LinkedIn's the exception at 940 million, but what we were saying, CV library, where are we sitting with CV library? Here we go. CV library is 18.8 million, and they only allowed me one line to put Boolean in, and it's a generic line across the top that looks in through an entire CV. How much irrelevant data am I going to be presented with because I couldn't trunk it down into current or past?
So could you use that line and then use filters as well?
Yep.
To do
but
that.
the problem is the filters are like, this is again comes this categorization. When you look at a CRM, the day you adopt a CRM, you tag it beautifully. It's the most stunning piece of data capture you've ever seen in your life. Then you allow your team to come in. Then you get busy. Life becomes really chaotic. You start using tools that are scraping CVs and profiles off the internet. So your CRM is filling up quicker than you can handle. Those filters you want to lean on are still not going to be able to categorize unless you stay on top of your tagging. So you're kind of on this losing battle, which is why I speak to a lot of CRMs. I'm like, you have to up your game. If you are going to be a data manager and hold data, you need to give these people the power to hunt.
The final question then is, what are the uses? We've got this for hunting, and we understand the hunt. Obviously, people have got to understand their understanding of Boolean logic, etc. But you can create that for them. What other uses could we use Boolean for that will help us either generate candidates, generate jobs, generate clients, etc., etc.?
Business development. Right? Business development and targeted marketing. How many times have you guys received an email and gone, that's not relevant to me? How many times have you done that back to a client where you have filtered down to people and gone, that's just about the right target audience, right? Industry filters are broken because of various reasons. How accurate is your targeting? So if you think about this, Boolean is a technique to find someone in a data set. What you do with that someone is up to you. It could be, I want you here as a candidate, or I want you here as a client. So the point is it's going to become a targeted search, and that technique can be applied. So if we were going to use, let's say, the business development example, okay? I'm not going to pay for a new data set. I'm going to go and use the systems I've got access to, which, as I said, is LinkedIn, just because I have it and I use it in the business. I go in there for Tooled Up Raccoons for my tech company, and I build a persona. Who is the person at companies that say yes to me? Who are the people at companies that say, oh, Gabs, could we have a call? I capture their job titles and what they've done in the role, so specific skill sets, specific experience, and I build Boolean strings around it. Then I build a company string for the companies I want to target. And I constantly, as I see new companies, and I'm like, oh, you're a new one, I want to add you into my list. All I'm doing is creating a Boolean string to search through a data set. And then I go, cool, so you're the guys I want to play with. And then I have various ways of extracting that data to engage. But again, it becomes down to this point of how targeted is your search, and using that data that you already have access to pivot it and go, come here, let's do some business together.
So let's wash this up, because I think there's a whole new webinar then on using this tool for business development.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is then that from a search criteria to extract more candidates, which is where we actually started, is using Boolean would actually give you potentially double the amount of candidates that you've probably got at the moment. It will extract more candidates from your database than you've seen in a long time, etc. And understanding Boolean is the critical part of that, and how to create Boolean. And what you're saying is that most Boolean searches that companies provide for you are actually orchestrating you into a certain area rather than actually opening up the area for you to develop that.
Absolutely, because you've got to remember those auto-generated Booleans are either driven off the filters that they already have. So they're basically a mirror image of the filters, which doesn't take you it takes you one step deeper, but not deep enough, should we say. But also it doesn't take into account this candidate-centric hunting that we talk about, like those typos, those hyphenations, those spacings, the ands, alls, or not. That is not being generated for you by these platforms currently. You need to think about that, and that's how you take your search deeper.
So to me, this is absolutely fascinating for
Mm.
all those people who say there is a candidate short market.
No
when
such.
actually you can generate lots more candidates that are available to you and start to farm those candidates or harvest those candidates, because you've got more candidates to aim at, and you can use your search to scroll up, scroll down, build up, build down,
Exactly.
and
And
work from there.
I think honestly, I think that's a really valid point. I think a lot of people sit there going, I'm in a candidate short market. They do say it. But I think the problem is with a lot of those people, when I've had calls with them, and I do have calls with these people, I'm like, let's go and do a live search together, and I'll show you you're not candidate scarce. The problem is they are not aware of these limitations in the technology they've purchased. There is this underlying assumption that the tech is there to help me and that it holds the data. And therefore, if I can't get the data out of it, it must be that the candidate's not here. But if you actually step back and apply, even sprinkle, like we've only scraped the surface of what we can do. Like we can do language translations on Boolean for multilingual candidates, etc. Like you can really go hell for leather on this, but you have to step back, acknowledge the limitations on your platforms, work out how to build those candidate-centric hunts to make your hunt more about them. And I promise you, anyone sitting there going, I'm in a candidate short market, it's because your techniques for hunting have not updated with the pace of technology evolution, and you're leaning on the wrong things to find that data. You need to level up your knowledge and start to learn to push and pull that to uncover it, or you've just bought the completely wrong platform and your candidates just don't exist in there.
So to close off, I think you've hit a massive nail with a massive mallet. And it's up to recruiters now to actually take that on board. So if you want to find Gabby, if you go onto our website, go onto our partner page, you can find Gabby on our partner page. If you've got any questions now, fire those questions. We are obviously 5 minutes over time already. Gabby, you've got an offer, haven't you, for people sort of coming through Jump? So again, if you want to come through Jump, tell her that you've come through Jump or you've come through these webinars, etc., etc. But I think, Gabby, we've got an absolute opportunity in the new year to convert this conversation from candidates into business development, because I think that's the side that people will also get really excited about. So I don't know about you guys, but I've thoroughly enjoyed that.
That's been amazing. Absolutely.
I think there's so much that people can learn from that. Use the QR code there that Gary's got. As I say, go onto our website under partner page and look at the partner page. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for your time. Gabby, thank you ever so much for a whirlwind of bullion. I can only describe it as a whirlwind of bullion. Yeah, it is. But it's great. And I think if that doesn't excite people, then I don't know what does. But there you go. So, ladies and gents, thanks very much for this week. Gabby, thank you for your help. Dave and Paul, thanks for your input, Dave and Paul. Much appreciated. And I will see you all next week. Thanks very much. Cheers. Goodbye.